And today is Tuesday, May the 4th of the year 2021. And with 6 o'clock, we will go ahead and open our Duncanville City Council briefing session and working session. We have 6 of 7 council members present at this moment of opening, which does present us with a quorum. So we will go ahead and proceed. In accordance with an order of the Office of the Governor issued on March 16th, 2020, as extended by the Office of the Governor on June 12th, 2020, the City Council for the City of Duncanville will conduct City Council meetings by video conference at 6 o'clock, May 4th, 2021, in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings in an effort to slow the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is an open meeting conducted by video conference. There is no public access to a physical location, however. When we get to the City Council meeting, I will give further instructions in terms of citizen comments, but at this moment, I understand from City Secretary, we have no citizens that have registered to make citizens comments. But we do have a hearing coming up, so we'll see how that proceeds. City Council members, further instructions will be made when we get to the point of doing roll calls, which we are familiar with, but I will go over those rules and procedures when we get there. Audience is in listen mode, but council members, please raise your hand or give us a good sign, physically, so either I or City Secretary Downs can see that you are wish to make a comment. Okay, Mr. Harvey, I just saw your hand. Do you wish to make a comment before we get started, or are you just raising your hand?
No, sir. I thought I understood you to give instructions to raise your hand, so I was just trying to be supportive.
Thank you for your support, sir. I appreciate that and your attention. Thank you very much. Okay, getting into our work session and briefing session. We will go to item number 1 on the agenda, which is discuss the agenda items. And for this, we will turn it over to our city manager, Retha Farrell-Benavides, to discuss the consent items on the agenda. Ms. Benavides, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We have 4 consent agenda items on the agenda for today. The first item is a consider resolution authorizing a cooperative purchase agreement with Vortex Company. And as we talk about Vortex Company, I think we mentioned it a little bit at the last meeting, but they perform our water. Let me make sure I've got the right one. This project deals with our pipe bursting project, over 1,000 substandard 6-inch water lines and replacement of 8-inch water lines. In the past, the city has used pipe bursting as a method to replace wastewater lines, but this is the first time to apply the technology to water lines. Staff has performed a site visit to Balch Springs to observe the process. This is a process cost approximately 25% less than the open cut water line replacement and takes a shorter time to complete and minimizes damage to the pavement. Water services will continue for the adjacent properties via temporary water main constructed by the contractor, and the project's anticipated to take about 2 weeks. Item 4B, this is Encore Electric. On April 8th, 2021, Encore filed an application to amend the DCRF, the distribution cost recovery factor, with each city retaining original jurisdiction and with the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, to increase distribution rates by $97.8 million on an annual basis. This resolution of council consideration authorizes the city to join with the OCSC, Encore City Steering Committee, to evaluate the filing, determine the filing complies with the law and it's lawful, to determine what further strategies, including settlement, to pursue. The request of this resolution is for us to deny the DCRF amendment proposed by Encore.
City Manager, if I could
Yes.
interrupt for just a moment. This may be confusing to folks. What we are voting on is a denial, and that may get confusing, but there's a significant amount of background information here to understand the acronyms that are being used as well. But the bottom line is that the committee has gotten together in terms of looking at the proposal from Encore. The proposal should be denied, and when we vote, if we vote affirmative, we are voting affirmative to deny the petition from Encore. So it's kind of a yes to get a no. Okay. And from what I understand, in talking to representatives from Encore, that is understood and acceptable should the city council approve this particular item. And that here again, that particular item is a denial. Okay. Yes, Mr. Harvey, I see your hand.
Yeah, just real quickly, Mayor, I am going to vote to deny it because I recognize it as a step in the process for us as a city to join with other cities to get the lowest possible rate increase from Encore. So this is a step in negotiating for the good of our citizens.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that additional information. Okay, Ms. Benavides, please continue.
Okay, item 4C is a consider resolution to confirm the appointment of Assistant Chief of Police Mark Lavigny as the interim police chief effective May 4th, 2021. Per our civil service rules, because we are a civil service community, although the chief is appointed by the city manager, it does by state law, Texas Local Government Code 143.013 requires that it is confirmed by the elected body. And that is based on the fact that we have a civil service. It is still the city manager appoints it. And so what we're asking is for you to confirm this process of appointing him as the interim police chief.
And here again, this is still as an interim. The title is officially interim police chief, where he is not being appointed as police chief of the city of Duncanville. I just want to make sure that I understand that and that's clear to everyone else as well.
Absolutely. There's no cost related to this item beyond the interim pay. Item 4D, Emergicon. Our current EMS billing contract is with Change Health Network, and our contract with them expired on September 30th, 2020. We are currently on a month-to-month basis with the current vendor, Change Health Network, until we get this contract executed. We are planning to and proposing to piggyback off of the City of DeSoto's contract, which was bid in June of 2020. We currently pay the Change Healthcare Network at a rate of 7.2% of collected EMS billing revenue. However, we pay Emergicon 8%. Using comparative data from the bid document and performance of like cities, Emergicon has projected about an 18% increase in collections based on their collection practices. And so we are asking for your ratification of this contract. And that concludes the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benavides. And I will just elaborate just a shade on that last item, that if you read the documentation in there, there is significant amounts of monies that do come back to the cities, to our city, as a result of the transportation of patients to the hospitals by our EMS crews. So that is a very important contract, and it's just very significant dollars there. Well over $750,000 if possible in terms of remuneration coming toward us. So it's a very important piece of information. Okay, if there's no questions by city council members on those consent items, we will move on to item number 2 on our agenda for the work session, briefings and presentations. The first item, item 2A, is discussion of feedback following the fire station public forum. And we'll turn this over to Mr. Greg Ramey, our Director of Public Works. Mr. Ramey, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, tonight I'll be briefing you on the feedback following our town hall meeting that we had last week. Next slide, please. Again, you've seen most of this background previously, but just some high notes for the public who may be participating. In August of 2018, we did a facility condition and needs assessment to look at the old fire station, and they gave us an estimated cost of $4.5 million. And then November, we did the bond election for $6 million to include the EOC and land. We identified and awarded a contract for our construction manager at risk to Core Construction. We then hired the architects, BRW. We've been working with them on the design. We had a meeting with council in December to talk about budget, floor plan, and exterior design concepts. Again, last week, April 29, we did the town hall and public survey, and then tonight I'm providing you with that feedback. Next slide, please. Again, here's the site plan across the street from Whataburger. And we're still working through that land acquisition. Next slide, please. Again, this is the layout of the fire station on that site. Public guest parking and EOC parking is on the east. And then within the fence on the west would be the firefighter parking. And then you can see the facility itself. Next slide, please. Again, here's the floor plan. This floor plan was designed with the architect working directly with the fire chief, the assistant fire chief, and the firefighters that would meet the flow of this fire station and meet what the fire chief has intended to accomplish the mission for this fire station. Next slide, please. Again, this is a summary of the budget currently. The budget column that you see on the left was the budget, the $6 million that was in the bond. And then you see the actuals for this project. And then we are expecting that the project itself will come in above the amount allocated in the bond. A lot of that, again, is due to just the increases in pricing in the construction market. And again, this pricing was assuming the least expensive option as option one. We did identify previously working with the city manager some cost savings from the roof project, which based on these estimates that you see here would nearly meet the requirement for option one. Next slide, please. And again, I briefed these before, but for the public, again, this was, as I mentioned, this illustrates the cost increases that we've experienced in the Metroplex since the bonds were voted for in November through now, and even with the COVID, it was a very marginal decrease. I can tell you that just looking at other construction projects that are going on right now, concrete is a shortage, steel is a shortage, and because of those things, the prices are increasing. Next slide, please. And then this was just some comparable fire station costs. Again, our pricing that you see is actually on the low end of the spectrum for these when compared to these other fire stations that have been built recently. All these dollars were, again, converted to 2020 dollars, just to put them all in the same frame of reference. Next slide, please. And then we just go into the two fire station options. As we mentioned before in the town hall, the floor plan that I briefed you previously was sort of what we built the exterior of the fire station around. And so what we presented was option one, where we have the offset roofs and the exposed steel from the frame of the building. And then option two, next slide, please, is basically very similar, except the back roof, again, extends past to the other side and creates a gable. And the other part is that the structure of the steel is covered under the brick, less exposed. This one does allow for additional mezzanine storage. Next slide, please. So again, we presented those slides to the town hall. We received just two comments following the, as part of the town hall. We'll look at the survey in a minute. One resident inquired about solar panels or wind turbines. And at this time, those are not contemplated for this fire station. It will be connected to normal prime power and have a backup generator to operate the facility in case of a power outage. And then another resident just provided some feedback about what he would look for in a fire station, and as well talked about the fire station being a catalyst for future commercial designs for redevelopment along the Camp Wisdom corridor. The fire station would be one of the first buildings built along Camp Wisdom in a long time. Next slide, please.
Mr. Ramey, if I might
Yes, sir.
interject
Yes,
very
sir.
quickly, in terms of, for that last comment by our citizen that gave us that insight that the fire station should have more windows, just one thing I'd like to say, in putting this all into total perspective on cost, as you already mentioned, we're pressing the budget very, very closely here. And it's going to be tough in order to bring this project in under budget or even close to budget. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have some the architects, engineers with us, but if we were to accommodate that request to bring in more windows, would that not substantially increase the cost of the project as it stands today?
Well, yes, sir. Glazing would add price. I know that throughout the entire process, as I mentioned in the timeline, we identified our construction manager at risk first, because we wanted that person to be with us throughout the entire process, to include helping us select the architects. And throughout the process between the architects and our construction manager at risk, they've been bouncing the design concepts against construction methods and pricing of those construction methods. And so, yes, we've been working very closely between the two parties to make sure that we get a product that looks nice, but is also, again, being mindful of the budget that we have. All those projects that we showed on that slide with sort of the pricing, those were all performed by the same architect. We have unlimited creativity, but again, as you said, Mr. Mayor, we have a limited budget.
So while we would like to accommodate that request to put more windows on, the bottom line is it's just financially not possible working with the budget and what we have available to us. I think that might be a fair summation.
Yes.
Hey, Mayor, since you're commenting, can you go back a couple of slides? I'd like to see that slide and that has all of the stations. There, that one, thank you. And we're saying that the same engineer did all the these stations.
Same architect. Yes, sir. These are the same architect.
Okay. And go back to the budget dollars for just a second.
I think that's about 2 more slides back. There we go.
Okay, all right, thank you. So about just about $1 million over. I know it's 877. I'm rounding up a little bit. I know we talked about where we get the 877 from, or I'll let you finish, but I want to get that answer.
Oh, well, so what we've identified already, sir, for cost savings to cover that initial shortfall of 877K was the cost savings we realized from the roof project that we did. If you recall, we installed new roofs on the City Hall Police Station, the Senior Center, and the Library Rec Center. And we budgeted 1.6 million, but because we assumed that, and part of that was anticipating a bunch of repairs needed to be done for the deck et cetera, beyond just pulling up the old roof and putting down a new one. And it turns out the roofs were in, the roof structures were in very good condition. So we were able to realize a cost savings and apply that to help us with this fire station project.
Yeah, you did
Any-
say that the amount though, Mr. Rainey. You said you was able to do the cost, but you didn't tell me the how much.
Oh, the cost savings was 876,750, sir.
So that was the exact amount that we're short is the exact amount that we're having for, we were saying.
So for the option one, based on our last pricing, yes, we were about $400 short.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Harvey has his hand up.
So, Mr. Rainey, thank you for what you've shared with us so far. Approximately when we break ground to build this facility, and approximately how long it would take?
I have a timeline at the end, sir. What we're anticipating is approximately 18 months to build. Breaking ground is going to be a combination. Right now, we're sort of, as I mentioned before, sir, we're still in the process of securing the second parcel. And I'm not, that's something that's been handled by the city attorney. So I can't really comment on how long his land acquisition process goes. But we'll be finishing our design after council makes their final decision on exterior design at our next council meeting. We'll be working in parallel with hopefully the intent that the land is acquired before we're ready to build. Otherwise, we would be waiting until the land acquisition is finalized. But in terms of that timeline, sir, if that's what you're asking, I would have to defer to the city attorney.
So let me ask a follow-up question. So what you've presented in terms of budget numbers is the best estimate that you can provide right now. I guess with the caveat that the costs, given the raw materials that's going to have to go into doing the project, the costs may go up even more before this is finished. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, sir. The budget, when we set up the budget of $1 million for land, we were assuming 3 parcels. But we made a decision early on to save money and based on the requirements that we needed to go down to 2 parcels. We secured 1 parcel very quickly, but we did, the budget numbers shown does account for the best estimate that was given to me regarding an anticipated price that would be negotiated. But again, that part's sort of getting out of my wheelhouse because I'm not part of all those details about the acquisition.
But I will say one thing, Mr. Harvey, taking this into a much broader perspective in terms of how I get information. As you're aware, I'm on the North Central Texas Council of Governments, Regional Transportation Council, and the chair of that, Mr. Mike Morris, who was the chair of the Transportation Department for COG. In every monthly meeting for the past, I would say, 5 months, he has stated that the projects for TxDOT and everything going around through COG are coming in below budget. However, at the last meeting, he said that's now turned. It's because of things are kind of catching up in the Metroplex and catching up throughout the nation as well, that as you said, the raw building materials used to be at very reasonable costs, However, as the nation and the Metroplex is catching up with this information right now, those raw materials are beginning to increase once again. So, you know, we as a council have to recognize that while Mr. Ramey has provided us with the budget and provided us with the cost at this point, and working with our CMAR, I got that right? CMAR, CRAM, yeah.
DMAR.
CMAR, yeah. That, you know, we're going to do everything possible. They are going to do everything possible in the design to make sure we stay within the budget and that overrun of 876,000 K. So yes, Mr. Harvey, you are correct in that caveat that we really don't know where this thing is going to come in at the end. But it is our responsibility as city council to put that to the watchdog for those costs on the CMAR and also on Mr. Ramey to make sure that we are responsible in the use of those monies. So I think everybody wishes we could lock this puppy down and say this is where it's at, but we can't at this time. So yes, the land acquisition to me is something that we kind of can put our hands on, but those raw materials for construction, nobody really knows at this point. We're just gonna have to be very, very careful and diligent.
Thank you, Mayor.
We may want to be careful to talk about the land acquisition right now, since it's in litigation right now, but I do still have a request for Ramey or city manager I just find it, maybe it's unique and maybe it's unique, or maybe it's just so great that our savings from the roof is the same amount of the savings that we're short. And if so, can later someone show us those numbers? Because that just seems, that's great if it is, but I'm not doubting it. I'm just saying, show us the numbers if that's the case. But that's just so uniquely set up, which is a great thing if it happens that way. But I just haven't shown me that the savings from the old roof is the exact shortage.
Ms. Benavides, I believe you have your hand up to answer Mr. Cook's.
Well, one thing that I could share with you, I was in the process of building a public safety building in Glen Heights. And one of the things you do, and the reason you do contract management and you go through this process, is that you do give them a level of here's where I can go. And once you get to a point and you know how much room you have in your budget, and if it goes over, you also you can tell them a not to exceed. And they get to go through and value engineer it. They get to look and see what are the things that we can do to reduce the cost associated to get it back into it. I know Mr. Sumlin is here who can better explain the savings that was there, but part of what happens, and that's why you buy a contract, you hire the contract manager at risk, because you can set the parameters of where you're trying to go with that construction project, and they can understand, and they're able to go in and do some creative things. They change some material, they do different things to fit into what you give them as your target. And that's likely what's happening here. But you'll see that often. And that's like I said, that's the advantage of a contract manager at risk coming on early on to help us to make sure that we stay on target from a time, but also on target from a budget standpoint.
And I can comment because I see Richard got his hand up. Maybe before I comment, see if Richard got anything.
Yeah, well, I was going to address Mark's concern about that amount being so close. It was an actual very freaky thing that project came out so close to the amount that we came up with our estimate. And so it wasn't planned, but it just was one of those freaky accounting things where it just almost practically equaled. But I have hedged, to the best of my ability against the price increases, and so I have invested money well before the interest rates dropped, and so I'm trying to hedge against all this inflation by the way that I invested the monies. And so we haven't even gotten into that. And frankly, I don't really want to get into that discussion because that's kind of like my safety net that I don't really want to break right now. But it's there protection.
And again, just to piggyback off of Richard, so the architects gave the design to Core Construction and said, please price these options. And the numbers that came back came from them. I didn't tell them we had any money. In fact, I didn't know what the price was going to be until they came back with these prices that, you know, we'll show you. And then when they came in, I think Kevin was still here. He's the previous city manager, I guess, for those on Facebook Live. He said, well, hey, we're going to save, you know, it looks like we're going to save some money on the roof project because we didn't, the roofs were in better condition than we thought. We will use those funds. And it turns out, again, that those numbers were just very, very similar. So it's very coincidental because, you know, again, we had one set of folks coming up with a cost estimate for the building, and then we had an established contract that was let and closed out during this design process.
Well, let's close this by saying that we have a consummate professional as our finance director, and his definition of what happened is freaky, quote unquote. And let's just kind of take it from there and move on if we can.
Okay. Yes, sir. So, so the next slides will be showing you what was the result of our public survey that went along with the town hall. And we had 31 total respondents, but one was partial. So as you see here, we ended up getting 30 votes against the two options. And basically from the public, I guess statistically, they're relatively even from the public regarding their preference for option 1 and option 2. But as you can see, option 2 is marginally higher from the 30 participants that made the selection. Next slide, please. And then we've got some public survey results, some comments. They were bunched up into basically two broad categories, comments about the design and then comments about the land, just so that council will be able to see them. We wanted to give maximum time for the survey to come through. So we pulled the survey results, both for the vote, you know, the selection of the two exterior designs, as well as their comments this morning. And so I'll sort of slow roll through these slides so that you as council can see what the public has said. I think in general, all of them were very positive and optimistic in terms of wanting to provide a quality facility for our firefighters to live and work out of.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. These are the other design comments.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. And these were the last two comments about land. And again, I wanted to talk about these for a little bit. The first one, again, for the group and for the public. As I mentioned in the town hall, the siting of the fire station was something that we had conversations about at the very, very beginning of this project in terms of where we would want to put it. And big picture, what we were looking for, again, was a fire station that remained off of an arterial road within Duncanville, again, to facilitate rapid response. The other part is Fire Station 2 is in the south part of Duncanville, and it is east of the railroad tracks. And so we wanted to put the fire station 1 on the west side of Duncanville, or west of the fire tracks to the north, so that we had the maximum spacing for these 2 fire stations. And so in this particular case, it continued to be on Camp Wisdom. And then just as a clarification, I know we had talked about it before, but as we know, there's only, we're only looking for 2 properties, and only one is one that involves the city attorney's actions.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so for council, as I mentioned, I was gonna bring this back to council for your vote, to select which option that we want the architect to proceed with. As you see, option 1 and option 2 are again presented for your consideration. The percent that you see by option 1 and option 2 represent those percentages from the survey, the 47% and the 53%. You'll see a summary of those 2 designs, as well as the cost estimates that we were given at the time. And so as we, just again, as a highlight, option 1, when I was reviewing with you the budget a few slides back, option 1, it appeared that the cost savings from the roof would almost get us there on option 1. But option 2 is about another $150,000 more than option 1.
So council, what we need to do is give guidance to Mr. Ramey and our CMAR in terms of, and the architects on how to proceed. The interesting aspect of this is the 2 buildings are very, very similar in terms of their aesthetics. We know that the construction is interior wise is identical, because that's exactly what we need. But as we have discussed, money is an issue. And sometimes when the dollars force us into making the tough decision, sometimes that requires compromise. And what we're looking for is, can we, as a council, understand the pressure of the budget and go for the least cost option, even though it may be something that may cosmetically, aesthetically, we may prefer the more expensive option, but in terms of our responsibility to do the best that we can with every dollar that we have, maybe we need to go with the least cost option, which is option number 1. So what we're looking for now for Mr. Ramey is some consensus. This is not a vote, not a poll. It's just some consensus. It's are we okay with option 1, putting all the factors on the table and run it all together in terms of what can we afford and what is the best use of the monies that we have? Is there consensus on option number 1? And I'll take, the easiest way to do that is maybe silence by consent. Okay, I see we have a positive from Mr. Anderson, consent from Mr. Anderson, and maybe as well.
Councilmember Veracruz has his hand up, and Councilmember Mac Burnett had his hand up.
Are those consents for consensus, or are that no? Mr. Veracruz, you do not agree.
That's correct, sir.
And would you explain that, please? Because what you're saying is that we're going to have to come up with another $150,000 somewhere.
Yes, sir. And these are specific examples. I've worked at this type fire station before, but more importantly, in my current position, storage space is just really hard to find. And with COVID and extra supplies, I mean, that option number 2, that potential storage space is really going to come in handy. I know that we work with our CERT, our Citizens Emergency Response teams. They have equipment. They have storage problems as well. And so I know it's going to cost more, But I think in the long run, it's really going to help us out. And that's why I would be in favor of option 2. Thank you.
That's a very important and insightful point, Mr. McBurnett.
And I would tend to agree with what Mr. Veracruz says as well. And I would also add that this is a 50-year project, the lifespan of this. And if you don't do it now, it's going to cost more later. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Cooks.
Okay, so again, I love option 2 because our citizens said 53%. Even as we talk about the 150,000, I would like to hear back from our city manager of where the 150 would come from. I'm not all excited about the external designs at this point, but there's nothing we can do about that. But when you talk about the dollars, I would like to know if option 2 was selected, where she would come up with the, what budget would come up with the 150,000 to offset that. So I can't go either way until I hear that. And then I would hope that we have both of these option 1 and option 2 on an agenda item for us to vote whenever it's time. But I would like to know that part during that discussion of where the 150 would come from.
Well, let me, I'm looking at this slide and I'm going to back up. I'm going to turn myself just a bit. Greg, the question here is which exterior design? And if that's the question, that doesn't talk about the 3 bullets underneath. We're just looking at the aesthetics of the design, not the extra volume, as Councilmember Veracruz brought up. That's a different item entirely, and I may have misled people. I apologize. Looking at this question, what I asked really wasn't the right question. The question is, what are we looking at for design? And then, as Mr. Cooks just said, there's going to be another time when we're going to decide on what actually goes into this thing in terms of that volume. So my bad. What we're looking at is exterior design and how that's going to be put together. Greg, help me out. I see this.
No, sir. So let me clarify. We are, the interior design in terms of the base floor plan, the bedrooms, where we have the bedrooms relative to the kitchen, relative to the EOC, and the bays and the fitness room, was all coordinated and by the fire chief. And he's the one that's I basically turned it over to him to make sure this is the fire station on the inside that's going to meet his requirements. But there is a additional mezzanine that would be part of option 2. So if you see on option 1 that the roof terminates at after the bays.
Yep, I see it.
And so
I see it.
What we have in option 2 is the roof continues in a gable. And so what that does opens up some additional storage space over like where the firefighter's kitchen and the living area is.
Got it.
So, yeah, so option 2 includes that additional mezzanine as we're looking at the front of it on the left side of the building. That is not part of option 1. Option 1 is basically 2 shed roofs.
I'm sure glad you said that, Mayor. I'm glad you asked, because it's like looking at a picture, say find the difference in the picture. And I think I missed that until you just pointed that out.
Me too. Yeah. Now that I see that with that gable is actually for that extra storage that Councilmember Veracruz is giving us that insight on. I really didn't notice that before. Yeah.
And if you recall back in December, we had a third option, which was more of a square rectangular facade.
I slept since then.
More expensive, but nobody liked it. It was very expensive and it didn't really give us anything other than a facade.
Yeah, Mr. Summerlin, instead of putting the question to our city manager, Ms. Benavides, maybe Mr. Summerlin, you have a little better insight on where we can come up with that extra 150,000.
Well, Mayor, as I alluded to in attempting to answer Mark's question about how we kind of matched cost savings to a project up, we do have other one-time projects that we've had savings on. So there's some small availability of money there. And as I will point out, and as I have pointed out when I've gone through the investment reports before, I'll point out again tonight that I have invested this money and accrued interest toward the bond projects. And I do have a pile of money there, and I've been very hesitant to march that out because I knew it would get spent. And forgive me that I'm trying to hold that close to my vest, because it's 4 scenarios like this and 4 scenarios such as the anticipated cost increase that we might have from inflation and just the market out there. So I've got money that I can cover this with, but I'm very cautious about it because that money could also be needed for other projects that might have cost pressures.
Okay. So without putting you on the hot plate any further and taking Mr. Veracruz's very insightful information into account, and now noticing, yeah, that slight difference is not just aesthetics, it's actually interior construction. We're looking at what's best for the long term, what's best for our firefighters. So we're looking, rolling back again. I think what we're really looking for then is consensus on number 2, option number 2, for what it does. And it's not aesthetics. It's not just what it looks like. It's what that extra gable really provides, which is the storage that firefighter Lieutenant Veracruz has given us that information on. So are we okay then with consensus on number 2 for all these reasons that we've discussed, and with some confidence in our finance director that this bogey of 150K, he has great potential, I would say, to be able to cover that delta for us.
Well, Mayor, to answer that for me, I still say it's a combination of our finance director respecting all of his expertise, but it's still working directly with the city manager for the budget to see where that goes. And so I know those two talk, and so I hope that they would together come up with the same resolution of this 150K. But I still would like to see both of them on the agenda when we're talking about voting.
Then Mr. Ramey, what we're doing looking forward is we have a preference toward option number 2. But when we come to council, when you come back to council with the formal resolution and to give us those dollars, we'd be looking at a decision based more on dollars versus more based on just what does it look like. Does that present a problem for the architect in terms of bringing us something to council to actually make a decision on for the next council meeting?
So the 2 choices that we have, once we get the vote from council in terms of option 1 or option 2 and the go ahead, that will complete the phase 1 of this, which is all the schematic drawings. And then they will advance into the construction drawings, which would be the next step in this process. So what I need from council is, do you want us to proceed with a fire station and complete the design of a fire station with the 2 shed dormers, or the fire station with the gable, which is option 2, so we can again put pencil to paper and get this completely drawn up.
Well, then what we're looking for, we may not be unanimous, but we're going to have to reach some consensus. And so moving forward, I understand what Pro Tem Cooks is asking for. I understand it. But in terms of being able to move forward with this, we need to have consensus among council that we need to move forward with number 2.
So,
I have a question also real quick. So if we're talking that 150 would give us extra storage, is the engineer or architect on the line, is there any other way to give us extra storage in the building without adding that 150?
if you, well, I know we've kicked it around. Let me turn it over.
Greg, are you actually, can you answer that, or does it really need to be answered by the architect?
Well, I mean, we've had, our architect is on the line, and I know we've talked about it, but at the end of the day, square feet, every square foot costs money. That's the bottom line. Every square foot costs money. So if I don't put it on top of it, then I have to extend it. But then when I extend the building envelope, that costs money. And so the savings is actually by doing the roof kit, by having a different roof kit helps us, because otherwise I already got most of the walls versus building, building yet another addition.
Okay, the architect answer real quick, Greg?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can the architect answer really
Oh,
quick?
yes, absolutely. Stephen?
Yep. Thank you. So yes, as Greg said, every square foot is going to cost additional dollars. And the reason that we proposed the additional storage to be on a mezzanine is because it costs less dollars than putting additional square feet on the ground level.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Veracruz, I did see you had your hand up. Another comment, or?
Yes, sir. Just one more, Mr. Mayor. So we're talking about the square foot. We're talking about the potential timeline being 18 months, which is one thing. We don't know what's in the future. But secondly, and you can come out and witness this for yourself, but at our fire training academy, we currently have 4 shipping containers out there that aren't the nicest looking things. Good thing is they're kind of hidden back there, but we're using 4 separate 40-foot shipping containers to put stuff in, in case of another pandemic, whatever may happen. But that's the kind of situation we're in there. So that's just a little insight for you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, can I ask Veracruz something real quick?
Yes.
So it's almost like buying a house, getting a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage, period. You buy a 2-car garage, you go buy storage in the backyard.
Right.
You buy a 3-car garage, you got a storage because you haven't built on. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think it's fair to say we're getting a very, very clear understanding, even greater tonight than we had in the past, about the necessity for this storage capability. And in that regard, I'm going to say that from what I hear, what I see, what I understand, Mr. Ramey and our architect, Mr. Hilt, we believe we have consensus that we need to move forward with option number 2, which gives us the storage, because it's operational necessity for the long term for this particular building.
So what I make sure I understand, Mr. Mayor, for staff report and resolution purposes, we will tee it up for option 2, of course, subject to vote. And of course, if something changes and everybody wants option 1, that can be something, I'm sure the attorney can help us, change that resolution accordingly. But also, if I heard Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, we need to add, just like I had the budget before where it just showed you how we afforded option 1, I need to show you how we can afford option 2. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, but as Mr. Summerlin has said, he is cautious of how that 150 is going to come up with, but he's giving us the assurance that he has the ability to do so. Okay.
Yeah, that's always, we'll talk about that one later. That's always kind of hard for me. But when I say hard for me, Mayor, is that I know our respect to our finance director. He said, I got something to the side, whatever else I could pull from it. That's kind of difficult to keep hearing sometimes, but I'll talk about it later. I'll wait.
Okay, so I understand, Mr. Cookson, I appreciate that. So yes, we have consensus to move forward with option number 2, Mr. Ramey and Mr. Hill. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
I'm sorry. Next slide, please. I was going to run through the timeline as well.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to tee this up for council for your resolution on 5/18. And then the timeline is in the fall of this year. We'll release the designs to the CMAR for final review and pricing. We'll start in the winter 2021 and finish in spring 2023, which would be the January, February, March timeframe. Approximately 18 months.
Okay, very good.
Next slide, please. And I think we answered all the questions, but I'll ask them if y'all have any other questions for me.
I think we've interrogated you enough tonight.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And
Well done, Mr. Ramey, though. Well
Thank
done,
you.
Mr. Ramey and Mr. Summerlin. We appreciate that. Okay, moving on to item 2B, the annual city council calendar. With Kristen Downs, City Secretary.
All righty, just wait for the slides to come up. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I wanted to discuss with y'all tonight, as you are aware, we had our May 1st elections. I have not received the canvassing results from Dallas County. So the last day for me to canvass will be May 12th. I need 2 city council members to be present. It's going to be via Zoom. And I'm going to have it at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, May 12th, and we will broadcast live. The city attorney will be there to read the canvassing results. With that being said, because canvassing and there is not a runoff election that is going to happen, I would like to go ahead and get the council members and candidates who won their race and to swear them in sometime after 2 o'clock. So it'd be 2:01 whenever we read the results for the canvassing. And then if it's okay with city council, I would like to have the May 18th city council meeting be in person so we can formally do a swearing in ceremony and a goodbye to the council members who will be leaving and departing. So I kind of just need a consensus on that if you're okay with coming in on the 18th. For the candidates who won, I will contact everybody and have seating for your family. And then I will social distance if the public would like to attend. However, we're still in COVID, but I would like to do a formal ceremony for y'all.
So what you're proposing is that we move the in-person council meeting that we had originally decided would be the first meeting in June to the 18th of May.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, here, I want to understand as well. Now, you said that we do the canvassing on the 12th, and once the canvassing is formally completed, then the individuals who have been elected would take the oath of office
Yes,
right
sir.
there, but they would do it again on the 18th?
They will take the oath of office with me. It will not be during that meeting time. It'll be once we sign off and adjourn the canvass. They can come in any day before the 18th. I can swear them in with me to make it official. And then we will have the formal ceremony for the public to see on the 18th. So they will be taken off office and seat when I swear them in on the 12th.
Okay, and Mr. McBurnett, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I am wholeheartedly in support of this. You know, we have new people coming on. We've had people that have earned their way. I'd also say, Mayor, you and Mayor Pro Tem Cooks and I got to feel the different effects from not having it and just having it this way. And we have new people coming in, and I think the pomp and circumstance and the celebration of them should be happening. Thank you.
As well as the celebration of the outgoing council members and their contribution to the city for their term as well. Yes, it's okay. So we're okay with that, then I guess we have consensus again. If council's good with that, Kristen, you may go ahead and prepare moving forward with that way.
Okay, awesome. Next slide, please, Tracy. I also just want to bring to your attention on June 21st and 22nd, we will have the budget workshops. Next slide, Tracy. And then on July 27th and 28th, Board and Commission interviews I have scheduled to take place. As of June 1st, I will be accepting all applications for all citizens. So please get those to me. And as of May 1st, I started accepting all the reappointment applications for the current members who are on the board. And that is all I have. And Councilmember McBurnett.
Thank you, Kristen. Can you tell me, are the applications updated and available now? Okay.
Sir, yes.
All right, thank you.
And anyone who has sent in an application prior to the application turning in or whatever you call it, I still have them on file and I will bring those up again. So, and that's all I have.
Okay. All right, I'm looking at attendance. I do not see Councilmember Jameson in attendance. She asked, it was this next item was put on the agenda at her request. And since she is not present, we will not cover that at this time. All right, moving on. In the agenda, there is no executive session. So, my goodness, look at that. We are actually on time, folks. It is 7:02. So we will cease our working session. My timestamp just clicked over to 7:02. Our work session will close at 7:02.
2 minutes late, Mayor. It's not on time.
Say again?
That's 2 minutes late. We're not on time.
Hey, that's give or take 30 minutes for us is good, you know. Proud of y'all. Thank you very much. There was some significant discussion and important decisions that were made. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is wait until this clock clicks over to 7:03 to actually call ourselves to order for our city council meeting. So if you bear with me for just a few more seconds. Very well. The timestamp is 7:03, and I'd like to welcome everyone, both present and online, watching us. This is the Duncanville City Council meeting, Tuesday, May 4th of 2021. Calling to order again, as I said, at 7:03 p.m. I will read again. In accordance with an order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16th, 2020, as extended by the Office of the Governor on June 12th, 2020, the City Council for the City of Duncanville will conduct City Council regular meeting by video conference at 7 p.m., 7:03 p.m. in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19. This is an open meeting conducted by video conference. There is no public access to a physical location. In next item that we need to cover in terms of citizen comments, City Secretary, please validate or verify for me that we do not have any citizen comments to go over at this time.
No citizen comments, sir.
Thank you very much. So we will dispense with that when we get to that portion of the agenda. And all members of council, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the option in the participant section of the Zoom software, or physically put your hand up so either I or City Secretary Downs can recognize you for what you wish to speak. Audience is in listen mode only. And each council member, as we said, when we get to the portion for voting, as we have done in the past for our virtual meetings, we'll do this by a roll call vote. So with that, in order to proceed with our city council meeting, I would like to do an invocation. And Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, would you give us our invocation, please?
Yes, I will, Mayor. Let us pray. Oh Lord, our Father, how we thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace and your mercy that you've bestowed upon us. Lord, we pray for your guidance and your wisdom as we seek to do the will of our citizens, seek to do your will throughout handling our business of our city. We love you for first loving us. Now, Lord, allow us to work together as a team that we may move forward with what our responsibility is set upon us. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen and amen.
Amen. Okay, we now individually have our pledges to the United States flag and Texas flag. Please rise individually and give those pledges. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 1 on our regular city council agenda. Item number 1A is reports from myself, council members, and city manager. Just as a courtesy reminder for everyone that according to our rules of procedure, that when we make our comments during these reports, we are limited to 3 minutes. And that is in black and white in our rules of procedure. So if you would please respect that. And Kristen Downs, our city secretary, will let us know if we're getting close so that you can kind of wrap up. So I'm first in terms of item 1A, and I'll run through these real quick. First of all, Thursday, May 6th is the National Day of Prayer, and some faith leaders in our community are going to have that in our rec center at noon. So everyone will be invited to that. Secondly, want to commend City Secretary Kristen Downs for the management that she has exerted in our entire staff, because we, the city of Duncanville, actually she, Kristen Downs, is recognized by the Texas Municipal Clerk's Office Achievement of Excellence Award. Kristen, because of your expertise and your management of our city officers, we, the city of Duncanville, have received this award, but it's all on you. And we thank you so much for your expertise, for what you do for that. Congratulations. We thank you for all that you do. Another quick point, Duncanville Independent School District is wrapping up, and Mayor Pro Tem Cooks and I were blessed and fortunate enough to be able to participate Saturday in the giving out of caps and gowns to graduating seniors, 910 graduating seniors. It was a pleasure for us to be out there, and I want to publicly commend Dr. Mark Smith, our superintendent, his staff, all the faculty throughout the entire district for a great year, a tough year, having to cope with unprecedented teaching activities. They've just done a wonderful job. We're very thankful for that. Wrapping up, I just want to say thanks to all of our citizens who came out and voted during our city elections, and for all the individuals that chose to run for office. Thank you for your desire to serve our city. We deeply, deeply appreciate that. So that concludes my mayor's report. Moving on, any council members reports? Yes, starting with District 1, Councilmember Vera Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to piggyback off your statement for Duncanville ISD. The graduating class involving the Collegiate Academy, which was started 4 years ago, and this year, June the 7th, they'll graduate their first class, which is absolutely incredible. The kids, I say kids, the students will graduate with an associate's degree and a high school diploma. So congratulations again to Dr. Smith, his administration, and all the hard work the students put in to make it come true. So that's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. I see Mr. Cook, Mayor Pro Tem Cooks.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the Meet, Connect, and Learn on last last Saturday, I got a chance to meet with our code enforcement senior officer, Esther Wright, Officer Dirk, Officer Yannick, our judge, Elon, and I understand it's code compliance, not code enforcement. So thank you for that information. But I want to thank those individuals for getting citizens the information. And then a special thank you to Senior Code Compliance Officer Esther Wright, who gave me a tour of the city for unfortunately code compliance. It started out being an hour. I just want you to know, if you go with her, it will not be an hour. She held me for 4 long hours, but I could have jumped out the truck, but I did not. But she did show me around the city really well in code compliance, and I encourage others to do it. National Teacher Day. I want to congratulate all of our administrators and teachers, because I think today, even though it's this whole week, but it's National Teachers Day. So congratulations to all the teachers, not only in our Duncanville ISD, but around America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other council members' reports? All right, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to city manager's report. Ms. Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple reminders. Our National Police Memorial Day is May 14th. That ceremony will take place at 10 a.m. May 22nd, we also have our fire truck pull on, and Memorial Day holiday is on May 31st. A couple of highlights just from my report. As a reminder, work is still continuing. The removal and reconfiguration of the median on South Main and Daniel-Dale. The new configuration will facilitate a left turn onto Shady Trail. That work is continuing and moving forward. We also are pleased to say that we had 3 police cadets who graduated on April 16th and are scheduled to be sworn in on May 7th in council chambers. And so we're excited to have them join, and we are excited to be able to provide more services to our community. Also, I'd like to highlight our new Economic Development Director, Gus Garcia. Gus, can you turn your camera on? Just the last time we were on, I think he was there and I missed him, but I would like to introduce him and just to share with everyone how excited I am to have him on board. He has hit the ball running. You'll see a survey outside. He's looking into things along the way of what we are doing and what would you like to see in the form of economic development. And also really trying to reach out to community members, council members, and to better understand our needs. And so we are so excited to have him here. And if you don't mind, Mayor, I'd like to take a minute of my time and let Gus say something, if that would be okay.
Go ahead, Gus. You got 60 seconds.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you and to be here today. I just want to say that I'm very excited. Thank you for that introduction, Aretha. I really appreciate that. I just want to say that I've had a number of community members come to my office and introduce themselves. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. It's been an engaging first week and a half. I'm very excited about the city, especially about the fact that so many people are coming to share their thoughts and their ideas. I did have an opportunity to send some emails out and some letters out to about 20 people in the community, and they're responding enthusiastically. I'm excited about that. And I will say this, as you saw in the announcement of my hire, I live in Little Elm, but I'll be moving to Duncanville this summer. So I'm very excited about that. I did mention that to Ms. Benavides. And so I really believe that in order to do a good job, an economic developer has to be part of that community. I am having some difficulty finding a place to live. And that's a good thing because it shows that a lot of people want to come to the community. I have 4 children, 1 in college and 3 that are in junior high and high school. And I'm very excited about the Duncanville ISD. We really want to engage in the school. And if all goes well, my wife will be teaching there for the 22 school year. And it looks really good. So I'm very hopeful about that. So I thank you for the opportunity again to be able to speak to everyone. And I'm very excited about this opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Ms. Benavides. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Garcia, looking at the weekly report and the itemization of the things you've already done on your short time on board, you're moving very fast. And we as a council and a city are very appreciative of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Moving on to item number 2 on our agenda, proclamations and presentations. And we've got 5 of them tonight. The first one that we have is a presentation of the Keep Duncan Beautiful May 2021 Business Beautification Award Plaque and Proclamation to Pappas Barbecue. The plaque was previously presented to them by Timothy Hamilton. And here's a picture of that. But the proclamation itself, I'm going to turn over to Mayor Pro Tem Cooks for the reading of that proclamation. Mr. Cooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read that real quickly. Whereas the city of Duncanville is committed to improving the physical quality of community life, and whereas the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board was established to promote this commitment, and whereas the mission of the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board is to empower Duncanville citizens, businesses to take responsibilities for enhancing the community environment. And whereas each quarter, the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board recognize 1 commercial properties within the city for significant improvements for the exterior portion of the property, landscaping improvements, and or long-term maintenance of the property that exemplifies high quality standards. And whereas the Pappas Brothers Barbecue, located at 230 West Highway 67, has been selected as the Business Beautification Award recipient for May 2021. Now therefore, Barry L. Gordon, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby urge all residents to join him in congratulating Pappas Barbecue, located at 230 West Highway 67, committing the business for the contribution for beautification of our city. Congratulations to Pappas Barbecue. Thank you.
Thank you to Pappas, and thank you to Mr. Cooks for that reading of proclamation. Item 2B, a proclamation recognizing May 15th, 2021 as Police Memorial Day and May 9 through 15, 2021 is National Police Week. And I would like to read this one myself. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the City of Duncanville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Duncanville. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of the City of Duncanville unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Barry L. Gordon, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, do hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 9 through 15, 2021 as National Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers of the City of Duncanville, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to our community, and in so doing, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of the City of Duncanville to observe May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2C, a proclamation to designate the week of May 16th through the 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week. And for this, we'll turn to Councilmember Veracruz. Mr. Veracruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is from the Office of the Mayor, a proclamation. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas the members members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate to those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency medical physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, first responders, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, Barry L. Gordon, the mayor of City of Duncanville, Texas, in recognition of this event, does hereby proclaim the week of May 16th through the 22nd, 2021, with May 19 being Emergency Medical Services for Children's Day, Emergency Medical Services Week. With the theme, "This is EMS, Caring for Our Communities." I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Veracruz. Moving on to item 2D, a proclamation recognizing May 16th through the 22nd, 2021 as National Public Works Week. And for this, turning to Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives and of vital importance to sustainable communities and the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Duncanville. And whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees from your local public works department who are responsible for and who can plan, design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, water treatment, public buildings, structures, and facilities, and who deliver solid waste services, transit, and fleet services essential to serve our citizens. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated professionals who public works department is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas the men and women of the public works department of the city of Duncanville unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, on the behalf of our mayor, Barry L. Gordon, I do hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 16th through 22nd, 2021 as National Public Works Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances, and all our people may join commemorating Public Works Department employees of the city of Duncanville, past and present, who, and by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to our community, and in doing so have established themselves as an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the health, safety, and well-being of all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McBurnett. And what we have, if you're taking a look at your screen, we have, of course, the inimitable Greg Ramey, Public Works Director, Jackie Colton, the Assistant Public Works Director, and we've got a video of Matt Bryan and his crew, Utility Superintendent. We're so glad to have you all with us today. Congratulations.
And Mayor Gordon also is my other superintendent as well. John Bogart, our traffic superintendent, Asa Lowe, our equipment services superintendent. He's keeps our vehicles going. And Kelly McChesney, our street superintendent, and I'm sure that's one of our field supervisors, but I can't see it in this.
Can't see his head.
But we have, and again, our city planner is also online as well, sir. So again, I just wanted to just thank you for this honor, and it is a pleasure and honor for us to serve the citizens of Duncanville by taking care of their infrastructure and providing quality of life and a good place to live. So thank you very much.
And we as a city are so blessed to have a complete staff in our public works that does such a superior job and take care of our city. Mr. Thibodeau, There you are. You came on here with the camera, so now we get to see your face. Good to see you. And we'll see you in just a little bit. Okay. Moving on to item 2E, proclamation recognizing May 2 through 8, 2021 as American Water Works Association Drinking Water Week. And for this, turn to our at-large council member, Mr. Patrick Harvey.
This is a proclamation from the office of the mayor of Duncanville, City of Champions. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy, and whereas any measure of a successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety are in some way related to access to safe water, and whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend, and whereas each citizen of our city is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. Now, therefore, Barry L. Gordon, the mayor of the city of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby call upon all citizens of Duncanville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 2nd through 8, 2021 as Drinking Water Week. And before I conclude, I would be remiss if I did not offer a shout out to the lasting legacy of leadership provided to the citizens of this community by Mr. Bob Lee and Mr. Dennis Swartz. They laid the foundation along with others upon which we build, and our challenge is to build well. Thank you.
Mr. Ramey, you want to introduce? I see that some new people. I see Mr. Shelley down.
Yes. Again, I just do want to really highlight the efforts of Matt Bryan, our utility superintendent, and his field supervisors. I can't see which ones, but they're Ryan Shelley, our wastewater field supervisor, Michael Wright, our water systems water line field supervisor, and Jason, forgive me, I'm totally blanking on my field supervisors right now. But again, these are the gentlemen who, during Winter Storm Uri kept our water lines going. We were able to fight the fire over at the Green. We were able to keep water pressure in our lines so that we did not have to do any boil notices. And it was through all through their efforts. Jason Colston, oh my goodness, I am so sorry, Jason. I owe you coffee and donuts now, but
Maybe more than that, Mr. Ramey.
That's right, I know. But again, these are the guys that keep the water flowing, make sure that the water that you come into your sink, come out of your showers is healthy and safe and provides that fire fighting capabilities. And again, as a old Army guy who spent many years overseas, the privilege of being able to drink water directly out of a tap is something that not a lot of the world has the benefit of doing. So again, I just want to thank Matt and his team for all their hard work and what they do to provide safe drinking water for the citizens of Duncanville. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are definitely benefited by their blessing and their expertise and getting us through those moments of crisis not long ago. So thank you for that. I think, You know, City Secretary, I think anytime Mr. Ramey talks, I think we're gonna have to start timing him. Put him on a 3-minute clock.
Yeah, 3 minutes. That's right, Mayor.
Okay, that concludes item 2, and we will dispense with item number 3 on the agenda. We do not have any citizen comments. Moving on to item number 4, the consent agenda. City Secretary, please read the consent agenda items.
4A, consider a resolution authorizing a cooperative purchasing agreement with Vortex Companies, Vortex LLC, using the interlocal purchasing system TIPS, contract number 2011-0401, water improvements, pipe bursting the water main on Briarmead Drive for the Public Works Department with an estimated expenditure amount of $224,150. 4B, consider a resolution finding that Encore Electric Delivery Companies LLC application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor to increase distribution rates within the city should be denied. Authorizing participation with Encore City Steering Committee, authorizing the hire of legal counsel and consulting services, finding that the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed by the company, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed is open to the public as required by law, requiring notice of this resolution to the company and legal counsel. 4C, consider a resolution to confirm the appointment of Assistant Chief of Police Mark Lavigny as interim police chief effective May 4th, 2021. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing an interlocal purchase for emergency medical billing and collection services from Emergicon LLC through the City of DeSoto RFP-FDA-2001-RFP for pricing services, software, and equipment for an estimated cost of $71,800.
Thank you, City Secretary. These
Councilmember-
consent items may be acted upon in one motion, and the City Council member, I will accept a motion to approve. Mr. McBurnett, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
From Councilmember Vera Cruz. Thank you very much. City Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, 4 are against.
4,
Councilmember McBurnett, 4 are against.
4.
Councilmember Anderson, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, 4 are against.
4.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, 4 are against.
4.
Mayor Gordon, 4 are against.
4. Thank you very much. That motion has passed. Moving on to item 5, items for individual consideration. Item 5A, conduct a public hearing, parens 2021-07, close parens, to consider an ordinance to revoke a special use permit for an indoor sports complex, parens batting facility, close parens, under ordinance 2308 and retain the existing commercial C district zoning on Woodhaven Block 2, Lot 3, more commonly known as 410 East Redbird Lane. Turning this over for a presentation to Mr. Sky Thibodeau, our city planner. Mr. Thibodeau.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Excited to be here. So as you can see, so this is a public hearing 2021-07 for basically the property commonly known as 410 East Redbird Lane. Next slide, please. The applicant owner, as mentioned, is Jose Garcia, and this is a request to rescind the subject SUP for indoor-outdoor sports complex under ordinance number 2308 and retain the existing commercial district zoning at the address 410 East Redbird Lane. Next slide, please. Here's a parcel map showing the area of request. Next slide. And here's an aerial showing you the subject property in association with the surroundings. So to the north of the property across Redbird Lane is the city of Dallas. To the east and west is more existing commercial uses in the same zoning district. And to the south, immediately adjacent to the subject property, are single family residences zoned single family 10. Next slide, please. And here's the zoning map showing the current location. Next slide, please. So as this relates to the comprehensive plan, rescinding the subject SUP while maintaining the property's commercial-based zoning is in conformance to the comprehensive plan, which has a future land use designation, as you can see in the insert here, the future land use plan map image of retail and commercial. Next slide, please. And really, in addition to what you're seeing here in the bulleted items, the purpose for this request is to rescind the subject SUP. It has to do with the conditions approved with Ordinance 2308. If you read through them, you'll notice they do not include an expiration date or a trigger for termination. So when the applicant came into City Hall in early March to apply for a CO for the permitted use of auto repair and services minor, a part of the CO approval process was to rescind the indoor-outdoor batting complex use. And basically what this does, it disallows the ability for another indoor-outdoor batting complex, hypothetically, to simply occupy the subject property without going through the SUP vetting process. So should anybody come in the future, they would come through the same SUP process. So basically this request is just bringing the site back into conformance with the comprehensive plan by maintaining the commercial district based zone. Next slide, please. So 8 notices were sent out, and as of today's date, we haven't had any responses for or against the request. Next slide. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval to rescind the subject SUP. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, first, before we open any questions to council, we're going to open the public hearing. So in order to do that, I will take and do a timestamp. The public hearing is going to be opened at 7:36. So the way we operate the public hearing is all those in favor have 10 minutes to speak in aggregate, not 10 minutes per person, but all those in favor have a 10-minute time frame in which to give their assent to this particular motion. So are there any individuals that wish to approach and talk in favor of this motion?
If you would like to talk in favor, please use the hand raising option provided by Zoom. If you are calling in, that's going to be *9. No hands are raised.
Thank you, City Secretary. The chair will accept a motion to close the affirmation portion of the public hearing. Mr. Harvey, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Mr. Cooks is seconded. Roll call vote, please. City Secretary.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
Or
Councilmember McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
Or.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, for or against?
Or is this Anderson's last official vote? But okay. All right. No.
He's got a couple more.
All right. Good.
At large, Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you. That is closing the public hearing. And the timestamp on that is 7:38. We're now going to open the public hearing for those opposed to this motion for this SUP. So the timestamp on opening is 7:38 as well. City Secretary.
If you would please raise your hand if you're opposed. If you would like to speak, if you are on the telephone, *9. No hands are raised.
Thank you, City Secretary. Seeing as no one is approached in order to speak in opposition to this, the chair will accept a motion to close this opposition portion of public hearing. At-large Councilmember Harvey has made the motion to close. So a second. Mr. Cooks is seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Veracruz, for or against?
or
Councilmember McBurnett, for or against?
For.
Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
Or.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, for or against?
Or.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
For.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
For. Thank you. We are closing the opposition portion of the public hearing. The timestamp is 7:39. All right, we're now going to open this up to any comments, questions by City Council members. Please raise your hand. So either I or City Secretary or so we can answer any questions of Mr. Thibodeau. Seeing none, the chair will entertain the motion to approve. Mr. McBurnett, or is that's a motion to approve or comment?
No approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember McBurnett. Is there a second, please? Mr. Vera Cruz, second. Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please, City Secretary.
Councilmember Vera Cruz, for or against?
Or
Councilmember McBurnett, for or against?
4.
Last vote, drum roll. Councilmember Anderson, for or against?
4.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooks, for or against?
4, and I changed the background to Monty going off into the atmosphere. That's what I changed it for, Monty.
At-large Councilmember Harvey, for or against?
4.
Mayor Gordon, for or against?
4, thank you. This motion is approved. All right, moving on to, Mr. Cooks, some might say that that is a picture of La La Land as well, so. Moving on, Mr. Anderson, to La La Land. It's okay. All right, moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Again, to the inimitable Finance Director, Mr. Richard Summerlin. Sir, the floor is yours. Receive the monthly financial report as of March 31st, 2021.
Next slide, please. So March 31st, that's the 6th month, the middle of the year. So our benchmark would be for expenditures and revenues. We'd expect to be right around halfway mark. Next slide, please. So our general fund, our unreserved fund balance at the end of the month was 23 million. That's about 260 days of operations. And keep in mind that we, of course, are collecting our sales tax, our property tax revenue up front and then spending that down. So that's why that seems out of kilter, but there will be no more building of revenues much throughout the remainder of the fiscal year, but we'll be spending down. The only other major source of revenue that comes in other than at the beginning of the year is our sales tax. And so our fiscal year 21 beginning fund balance was greater than expected, which also contributes to that fund balance. And that was primarily due to 2 things: transfer in from the emergency fund for $417,000. And that was due to the CARES Act, and then a one-time transfer in for our closing out of our medical self-insurance fund for $340,000. Next slide, please. So as I noted, our general fund revenues are about 72.6%. So the reason that's above that is because we've collected 99.8% of our property tax, which is the major revenue in our budget. So it's about 1.1 million or 6.6% higher than it was the same time last year. And then our sales tax revenue is essentially flat. We're at a little less than 1/10% down. So very, very close to the same as we were at the same time last year. Next.
Mr. Summerlin, if I might interject on this last bullet, just for everyone's information, there is a bill moving through our state legislature that is going to put sales tax in the destination, not the descending facility. So if someone orders something online from a facility that's located here in the city of Duncanville or any city here in the Metroplex, those sales taxes are going to go to the city of receipt, not from the city of dispatch of the goods. It's both a positive and a negative, depending on those industries within a city. There is one city within the DFW Metroplex that stands to lose close to $24 million as a result of this particular piece of legislature. So it's something that we're going to be aware of. I just want to make you all aware of that. And Mr. Sumlin, if you would help us watch that in terms of where you think that might affect us in the future as this moves, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Please continue.
Definitely will. So the grand total for our general fund operating and project expenditures is at about 36.8% of the budget. And our operating expenditure categories are all within budget for the current period. And then the project expenditure section includes the transfer out for one-time projects, and that's at about 16.7% of the budget. Next slide, please. So these are just graphical depictions where the purple line shows our annual budget as if it were incurred. The revenues were incurred evenly over time, a straight line. And then the red line is graphing out our actual revenues that we've received thus far for the fiscal year. And then the blue line is a 3-year average of revenues. So you can see that we tracked right along. And now that we've got most of our property tax in, we're trending along above that line that is compared to the 3-year average. Next slide, please. And so here, just lasering out property tax, you see the very same thing, except it's exaggerated because it's only showing property tax and how we collect that. And as I noted, you know, after about March, we tend to be very flat, very little sales tax. Property tax is collected. Next slide, please. And then this is our sales tax.
Councilmember Cooks has his hand up.
I'll go back to that last slide, Richard. I'm really trying to understand that one a little bit more. If you'll take a little bit more time on this one for me, please. Okay,
this is just our property tax. It's the same format that I do all of my slides. The purple line is our property tax if it were collected evenly over time, but of course we don't collect it evenly over time. But it's about the only way that you can really show a budget, if you will. And so then the blue line is the 3-year average, and then the red line is this year's actual to date. And so of course we don't typically hardly get any property tax in the month of October, and then we start collecting November, December, January, February is when we collect the majority of our property tax. And then after that, you can see how on the blue line, it is almost even out because we're very little collection on property tax after the month of March. And you'll see that for our actuals this year as well.
And so the budget straight line, you said you wanted to do that just to show us what's the purpose of this budget straight line on that purple?
The budget straight line is to just show you where we want to end up. And really the only way to show that is to show it as if it were incurred evenly over time. So the end point out there for September at about 18 million, that's where you want to end up. That's the end goal.
Yeah, that purple line is the budget divided by 12 plotted out on the x-axis. That's why it's a straight line. It's as if the entire budget were divided evenly by 12 and collect that evenly throughout the year. That's all it is.
All right, let's go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, and again, the same thing with the sales tax, and you can, because we're 2 months in arrears, you see that swing up toward the end of the year as we collect those final 2 months, then after the close of the fiscal year. But the same thing, we're trending along very close to that 3-year average. Next slide, please. Then, of course, this is our expenditures. Again, we tend to incur expenditures a little more evenly over time, but it's just the same concept. The purple line is our actual budget or our adopted budget for the year. And then the blue line is the 3-year average and the red line is the actual. So far this year, we're trending our expenditures below the 3-year average, being very conservative. And so we may catch up with that, or we may end up, coming in under budget. Of course, we always like to come in a little under budget on expenditures. Next slide.
Question here. Sorry,
Mark?
I do. Yeah, hang on the actuals. Is there not a month or a quarter where we're not actually trying to have expenditures taken care of? And let's say the first quarter of the month or the first quarter of the budget year, do we not pay expenses then? Or do you look at it in that fashion when you want to hold it and not start paying until like the second quarter of the fiscal year?
We have in our financial policies, and this is something that all city vendors are accustomed to. We have a policy that says that we want to pay, and we'll do our best to pay invoices within 30 days after we receive the invoice. And so when people finish work, they expect to get paid. And then of course, some of our larger projects that we do, they will do progress payments on them. And so, yeah, we have to pay those, and those expenditures are incurred more evenly than revenues come in.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. So looking at our utility fund, our ending fund balance is about $2 million after we take out the $5 million that we've reserved for our AMI project. It's about 37 days of operations. We would like to have 60 days. And as I've cautioned before, because we're taking out that $5 million for AMI and the fact that we've spent down our fund balance because we have not raised rates, we no longer have that 60 days of fund balance if we took that $5 million out. But of course, we haven't spent that yet. Water and sewer revenues, of course, 1 month in arrears. So this only reflects 5 months instead of the full 6 months. And then our sanitation fund has an ending fund balance of $808,000, which is about 72 days of operations. So we stand good there. Next slide, please. So same concept as the general fund, but just charting out the utility fund revenues as they're incurred. Of course, since their utility fund revenues are based on billing, they're incurred fairly evenly over time. You see that 3-year average tend to cross over the budget line somewhere in that March, April timeframe when the water usage tends to go up when the warm weather comes. And so that's why you see that crossover of the line. Next slide, please. And then our utility fund expenditures, same concept. Our year-to-date actuals are trending a little bit below the 3-year average and below our budget. So that's a good thing. And next slide, please. And then our one-time projects, these are the things that we've completed already. And so as we talked about before on the roof replacement, we had some significant savings there. And as you note down on the note on line 2, we've kind of reserved that excess budget for the fire station project. We could have picked some of these other things too, but the remainder of our unallocated savings from completed projects is another $88,000 that we would have available to make up that gap that we talked about earlier. We could add that on. So again, that $878,000 wasn't a magic number. It just was kind of a freaky thing that one project came so close. So we went ahead and earmarked that after we knew what the projected fire station costs were. So we have other things that are still being worked on, but those two, then yellow, the roof replacement and the fitness equipment's already been completed. And we have some of those savings came from projects that were completed in prior year too. Next slide, please. And any questions?
You know, I do want to go back. Well, the presentation that you showed or that we received on email, we had a little bit more detail about the expenditures, because I wanted to ask about the alcohol tax, beverages tax. Did you have that slide, or was that just a slide we're given for detail for us?
I always put in your packet the detailed numbers for that make up everything, but no, I don't have a particular slide that lasers out the alcohol beverage tax. No.
Okay, so how do we account for that? Are we getting all that we can from companies or organizations or whoever that's having an alcohol tax? How do we track that, and how do we know we're getting it all we need to get from everybody?
Well, it's collected and remitted through the state. It's very much like sales tax, and so we don't have the between the state and the alcohol bureau, the TABC. They're the ones that do enforcement on the entities as far as reporting. They also do the audits on them as well, and then they just remit the alcohol sales tax to us.
Okay.
So it's more of a state-run thing, Mark.
Yeah, because I knew that when I was looking at some businesses, I was just wondering how we track if we're getting the correct alcohol tax from those companies that's serving alcohol in our city.
Yeah, it's something that I guess we could look at from the standpoint that I have a firm that does audit for our sales tax to make sure that, you know, any kinds of problems get resolved. Of course, the state does audits too, and they resolve some issues through audits. So, you know, that's something we could look at if our audit firm wants to, you know, or has the capability of getting into the alcohol beverage tax. But again, that's just pretty much all run by the state.
Okay, and then last question for me is the water transfer. Our citizens normally have a lot of questions around the water piece when we talk about our financials, and so I would hope that a slide in the future will always concentrate on, even if it's repetitive, you're sharing with us how the water water cost is taken care of and explained. So if you would think about adding that slide on water each and every time, where we can be very repetitive and getting the message across on how the water is translated, because people have different interpretations. And I think as much as we keep repeating it, I hope the better others will understand it.
Well, I think it bears repeating now. It's a little bit difficult to just I could create a slide that talks through that. It's hard to depict that from a graphical standpoint, but each 5 years we have a water rate study performed, and the independent entity that does the water rate study, they recommend to us what percentage of revenues from the water utility that we need to have a transfer over to the general fund to take care or to reimburse the general fund for all the work that's done by general fund employees. For instance, in finance, we do all the accounting for everybody. And so there are transfers into the general fund to take care of the work that we do on behalf of those other funds. It's only fair that they share in our cost. And so does the utility fund. There's also other costs that from a public safety standpoint, insurance cost, et cetera, et cetera. So they factor all those things into their study. And as I've said always, the amount that I transfer from the utility fund to the general fund is a little bit less than what they recommend.
Hey, thank you verbally for that, Richard. Again, I know talking to us, we hear it all the time. But again, I'll go back to if there's some other way in the future that you can provide something to us for our citizens, not really for us, for our citizens, where we can show that on a every time we present basis, that will help. Verbally is great, but visual is a little better. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harvey, I saw your hand up.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Could we go back to the presentation? I think it was a slide or two. It was on the capital projects. It's all the way at the end.
Right
Yeah.
there.
Hold on just a minute on that. So number 12, the fire station project. And it says C note 2.
Yeah.
And so my question is the $878,025 is expected to do what?
Well, as we noted when Greg was doing the slide, we were coming up approximately 877,000 and some change, just short. I think $400 short of that number that he was coming up short on the original anticipated projected cost. And so what we did is we went ahead and earmarked the savings that we had from line 2 on the roof replacement. And we went ahead and dropped that in and called it the fire station project, so that we went ahead and earmarked that money to go to the fire station to make up for that difference.
Okay, well, it would communicate better to me if we had a column, their reallocations, and I don't know, probably stationed somewhere between columns 2 and 3. And so when you have monies left over and you reallocate it, then you can show a deduction in one line and a plus in another, because without any other information, I'm sitting up here thinking you're going to build that fire station you just showed us for $878,025. And I've experienced a fire station being built just recently in my work experience, and it was like $1.3 million. And so without any other information, I'm looking at $878,025, and I'm saying to myself, you can't get that from here.
Well,
So,
does not note 2 explain it though?
Right, that's why we
All
put
the verbiage in note 2 explains why that line has been created.
well, I'm like Councilmember Cooks. You know, the verbiage is one thing, but if I could actually see it work visually, then I would get it. Right now, without having asked the question, I don't get it. So there are different ways to communicate the message: charts, graphs, verbiage. You know, it needs to be a different way of showing this. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. McBurnett, did I see your hand up? No, I did not. Okay, sorry. Okay. I think that closes this, Mr. Summerlin. Moving on to item B, 6B, receive the fiscal year 2021 second quarter investment report as of March 2021.
Okay, next slide, please. started out our investments at 12/31/20, the end of the first quarter, with $67.5 million in our portfolio. And so we had purchases of new investments and then mature of 21.4 million, then maturities of 16 million. And so we had the ending balance at $72.9 million dollars in our portfolio. And go to the next slide, please. So the way that we have those spread out, we have about 60% of that in CDs, 12% of that in our Logic government pool, 28% in money market funds. Next slide, please. Showing that by the maturity, longevity, we have most of that liquid, 33.4 million under 30 days. And then we have between 90 and 180 days to maturity, 7.5 million. And then 180 days to 1 year, we have 32 million invested. Next slide, please. And so on this graph, what I do here with the darker blue line that you see at the top, that's the city's portfolio performance over this past quarter plus the previous past quarter. And so you see how interest rates have declined and how our portfolio yield has declined over time, but we're still well above the benchmarks. The green line is the Logic investment pool, the yield on it. The 90-day T-bill yield is the red line, and then Tex pool is another government pool, and that's the purple line that you see that's charted out there. So next slide, please. And then this breaks down the allocation of interest earnings by all of the different funds. And go to the next slide, please. And so you can see that for the entire quarter, we earned $79,223.48 in interest, which is, you know, it's really sad that you know, on a $72 million portfolio, I earned $79,000 in a quarter, but that's what interest rates are. And of course, I'm relegated to investments that have to be in compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, which means that I have to worry about preserving capital and not worry about getting returns. So none of the things that we invest in have any risk of losing principal. They're all very secure. All of our CDs are secured at 102%, meaning that we have collateral or FDIC insurance combined that is equal to 102% of the face value of the investments.
You know, Richard, you mentioned you sadly were relegated to where you can invest. Make reference to Warren Buffett made comments at his stockholders meeting to Berkshire Hathaway, saying one of the best things you can do is tie yourself to an S&P index fund because that's where the performance is. And unfortunately, as I've asked this question in the past, and you've educated me, we are sadly relegated to where you can put this money. So if we could put this money toward an S&P index fund, we'd be looking at a whole lot better returns, because I think they're like 116% from what Buffett was saying to Berkshire Hathaway during the stockholders meeting. Just a comment, sidebar. I think Mr. Cooks, did you have a comment?
No, I was looking for the term of on these CDs. So am I missing that?
In the investment report, I've got the report that I put. I didn't put a slide in here, I don't think, on that, but in your investment report that's in your packet, let me turn over here to it.
And you don't have to give me all of them, just enough I will see.
On page 4 of the investment report in your packet, it has the purchase and maturity date of each one of the investments that we have.
And,
But
I'm not looking at what's
that
the,
in the,
That's page 278 of the entire package, Mr. Cooks.
okay, but what's the longest one, Richard?
I think 1 year is the longest one. I had that. Could you back up, Tracy, to the beginning of the investment report? Right. I'm sorry, one more down.
One more.
Right there. So 1 year is the longest that I have anything invested at the moment. And again, I have to stay within Public Funds Investment Act recommendations, and their recommendation is that you never go past 2 years. And they really recommend that you try to stay, within a year, because you really, there's no way for sure in most interest rate environments how fast things may change. In this particular interest rate environment, nobody's predicting anything to change out past about 12 months. And so you can definitely see that when you look at the yields. You can go out and get a 24-month CD, and it won't pay you most times not a penny more than a 12-month will.
True. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions of Richard on the investment report? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Moving on to item 6C, receive the Parks and Recreation Quarterly Report. Mr. Stevenson, you're up.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here to talk about the quarterly report for Parks and Recreation Department. For this particular report, that will cover February, March, and April of 2021. Next slide, please. These are our new employees and one retired employee for the Recreation Center. We have Luis Ibarra as our new Recreation Coordinator, as well as a new Recreation Center attendant in Kayon. A new park maintenance worker, Francisco Perez. And then I want to highlight one retiree, Joe Macias, retired last Friday from the Park Maintenance Department Athletics crew. Joe was with the city for 36 years. I think he was the second ranked employee as far as tenure at the time of his retirement. So congratulations to Joe, and we wish him all the best in his future endeavors. He'll be missed. Next slide, please. For our park maintenance, we have opened up all of our parks from COVID. The last thing we did was open up the drinking fountains several months ago at the beginning of the quarter. So now all of the amenities within our parks are now open. We've changed out the parking regulation sign at Pyburn Park. The sign that was there was very ambiguous, and it just said visitor parking, and that was it. So we didn't know if it was visitor parking for that house that was next door or for the neighborhood or what, but we made it a little bit more clear. We started a pilot trash can program that you guys are aware of that we discussed a couple of months ago, and we had 2 trash cans placed, one at Duncanville Road and Camp Wisdom, and another at Daniel Dale and 67. And those have been very popular. We're getting reports from our litter crew that they're having to empty those twice a week. So those have been well used. And then I want to congratulate our Keep Duncanville Beautiful group and Timothy Hamilton for their successful Governor's Community Achievement Award that was announced a couple of weeks ago. We were the Category 6 winner, and we'll be receiving $210,000 for a future landscaping project on either Highway 67 or Interstate 20.
Big congratulations on that one.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Well done. Thank you.
Next slide. For our Recreation Center, we are continuing to see increased usage. We're at 5% over the previous quarter, and that quarter was actually a record for us as well. So a lot of usage at the Recreation Center, lots of activities going on. We've started doing some socially distanced events with our Easter egg drive-through. We had a movies in the park a couple of weeks ago with a showing of Frozen. And then unfortunately our Cinco de Mayo celebration, which was our concert this past Saturday night, had to be canceled due to inclement weather. There's a number of upcoming events coming. I do want to highlight the Best Southwest Juneteenth celebration, which will be held in DeSoto this year. You guys will be getting more information about this in the coming weeks. However, I want to make sure bring it to your attention because it will be a live in-person event, and DeSoto is working on putting that together. So, next slide. Here's just a few of our flyers for Movies in the Park Frozen 2, which is in a couple of weeks. Next slide. Our Memorial Day event, which is a fantastic event that we hold every year, sans last year, obviously, to recognize and remember and honor all of the folks who gave this ultimate sacrifice to our country. They'll be held on May 31st at 10 a.m. Next slide. Our next concert in the park will be a country-themed event, and look forward to that on June 5th. Next slide. And we'll end with our Independence Day celebration, which we discussed at your last meeting, which will be held Saturday, July 3rd, with our annual parade, working with our Lions Club, and then our fireworks show that evening. Next slide. Our senior center, we are still closed. However, I wanted to let the council know that we are working on a reopening plan. We are visiting some other centers. Our next visit will be tomorrow, actually at the summit in Grand Prairie. But working to get those senior center open just as soon as we can. And I know the seniors are looking forward to that, and I know our staff is looking forward to having them back as well. We are continuing to serve meals. That has decreased a little bit over the last quarter, primarily just to folks finding other ways to find food and meals for their families. We had a couple of socially distanced events with parking lot bingo and some drive-in music performances as well. Next slide. This is just a slide about a reminder of our meal program through DAAA. It's a great program. I always like to keep this slide in there just to let folks know that this is available in case you aren't aware of it. So next slide.
Wait a minute, Bart. I
Yes.
just want to comment on that last bullet there. It might get overlooked, but this is so important for our elderly shut-ins that are in our city and can't get out, that our staff, your staff, makes phone calls to these people to check on them and see how they're doing.
That is correct.
That is so important, and I think we kind of overlook the importance of it. But if you have an elderly family member and they're a shut-in, and if you know that the city is concerned for their welfare and making phone calls every week, you should be extremely grateful. This is a great program.
Yeah, we've been doing that since day one, since the pandemic started. And again, that's a great way for our staff to stay in communication with our citizens and our members, and making sure that people are staying safe and make sure they don't need any assistance that we can help provide them. So
Right. Very good. Thank you.
next slide. This is an update on our bond election projects. We have completed the Lakeside Park Pavilion with the addition of the parking lot as well as some landscaping. We opened up the pavilion to rentals on Easter weekend, and it has quickly become our #1 pavilion for rentals in a short time. Armstrong Park, as you're aware, we received the Texas Parks and Wildlife local non-urban grant, and then we expect construction to begin shortly after our July 3rd event later this summer and early fall. Harrington Park, very similar construction timeline, and then we hope to start this winter following the spring seasons for baseball and soccer. And we've recently received verbal approval from TRA to cross over their easement with our bridge that will link Waterview Park and Harrington Park. Our service center renovation projects are coming along. It is out to bid now, and those bids will be coming back later this month. And we'll hope to be under construction again this fall once those are vetted and approved by the council.
Mr. Harvey, did you have a comment here?
Sorry about that. I was muted again. So on a previous slide, Bart, how old does one have to be in order to participate in the feeding program?
60 years. 60 years, you get it is free. Anything under 60, then you can pay a fee for that meal.
So if you're over 60, you can eat for free.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. So what kind of food do they serve?
It is all nutritionally balanced meals, so it's all done by a nutritionist or planned by a nutritionist at VNA, the Visiting Nurses Association.
Kind of like lettuce and celery.
They're all hot meals.
Oh, a little something more than lettuce and celery.
They're hot meals that are packaged. They're kept in coolers so that when the folks come pick them up to the drive-through service, that they are still a little bit so warm, and that they can always heat them up at home too if they need to.
Now, do you have to be a member of the senior center in order to get this food?
You do not.
You do not.
There's a stipulation of the grant through VNA and DAAA is that you do not have to be a member of the senior center.
Oh, okay. So like, for example, the mayor could go and get some food there. And
the mayor and his wife have eaten there several times, Mr. Harvey.
Well, I would like to hear your recommendation. Do you recommend it?
It's bland, but it's very nutritious.
Thank you. That is all my questions at this time.
You're not going to get fried catfish and hush puppies. I'll tell you that.
It is nutritionally balanced is the word we used.
And Mayor, you would say the company is good as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next slide. I'll answer any questions you might have.
All right. I think we've got it. Thank you very much, Bart. And we'll move on to item 6D, the Fieldhouse Quarterly Report. Mr. Craig Brassfield. Mr. Brassfield, you're up.
Am I being heard? Hello?
We got you.
I can be heard. Good evening, all. Mayor, council, I'm here tonight.
We can barely hear you, sir.
Yeah, get closer to your microphone, Craig.
Let me see if I can turn it up a little bit. I don't know where my volume button is. Can you hear me now? How about now?
Little better. Just holler at us. We'll be okay.
Well, I'm here tonight to present the second quarter Fieldhouse quarterly report. Next slide, please. First slide kind of indicates our actuals versus our original budget and trend in a form of a graph. This is the revenues. Next slide, please. Same slide for expenses, the trend versus original and actuals. Next slide, please. The results of these are when we did our budget revisions, not knowing COVID and how people were going to respond and all the uncertainties, we were very conservative with a loss budgeted. But we were able to operate at a safe capacity and effectively maintain our COVID protocols. And was able to generate a $70,000 profit over the quarter. We will revisit our budget obviously next week when we do our budget revisions and see where we wind up at the end of the FY21. A big player in how we do is our summer camp program. Again, a lot of uncertainty, but we're prepared to open summer camp on June 7th. Next slide, please. On June 7th, right now we're under registration. We've registered 14 kids to date. Our goal is 200 kids. Our normal capacity for summer camp pre-COVID was 450, almost 500 kids registered. It's a little deceiving when you register that many children. You usually get about 60% or so show up each week. So 450 registration doesn't render 450 kids. By experience, we've learned that it's about 50 to 60% of those kids show up week to week. But we're prepared with our COVID protocols and getting camp open safely and taking it into the summer. This is a highlight of our events that we've already done in April, highlighted by 2 GASO events. April generated $106,000 in revenue deposited, which compares to 2019 was 104,000. So we're quite proud of the April we had, and comparatively speaking, we're ahead of the game. In May, what we're in right now, the big events this weekend is or this month, I should say, is the Hype Sports event at the end of the month. All the events are big. The Sister Hoops event was a really large event, and we're moving forward in May. Next slide, please. June obviously is our biggest month of the year with summer camp. All the camps that we host, basketball, we have the Mavs have a couple of camps, or one camp this month, I think one in July. Several basketball camps, as you can see. The major event tournament wise is the Dallas Showtime event in mid-June, but it should be a $200,000. If we do what we've done in past years, that's $200,000 plus is our biggest month of the year for June. Next slide, please. I'll try to answer any questions.
Mr. Harvey, you had your hand up? You just muted yourself again. Unmute.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
I wanted to ask him about Gasso, but he addressed that. I was wondering if they were still doing that or had any immediate plans to do it, because I know Gasso is a big thing for the Fieldhouse.
Yes, sir. We've hosted to date 3 Gasso of our 5 Gasso events. All have been muffled down. College coaches have not been invited, so we have not hosted the feeding through our Chamber of Commerce partners that we've done in past years. That is on schedule for July. So hopefully we're back to excuse me, a larger sense of normalcy for the Gasso event. We're expecting that to be a really big event in July.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions for Craig? All right, seeing none, that takes us to the end of our agenda for our City Council meeting, May 4th of 2021. And we will adjourn. The timestamp for City Secretary is 8:27 p.m. Thank you very much to all of our citizens, all of our council, and all of our staff for participation this evening. Have a blessed night.